After receiving a strange letter about my grandmother's will, I tried to ignore the family drama until I uncovered fake documents with my signature and had to choose: expose the truth or stay quiet for the sake of peace. That I've read enough stories here to know my situation will sound both small and absurd to anyone who's never seen a family eat itself alive over inheritance. I used to think that stuff only happened to people with money or in the kind of families that made for good late-night TV. But here I am, typing this on my phone at midnight in my old bedroom, listening for footsteps in the hallway like I'm 14 again, and trying to remember when things weren't so twisted. My name's Mark, I'm 34, single, and back in the same mid-sized Ohio town I couldn't wait to leave after high school. I manage IT projects remotely these days, much better pay than my old server admin years, but still not enough to feel safe. When my grandma Bernice had a stroke 7 months ago, I was the logical candidate: single, techie, not tied down. The subtle assumption was that someone in the family would come handle the chaos: medications, bills, repairs, all that. And since I could zoom into morning scrums just as well from her faded living room, here I landed. Bernice raised me more than my parents, to be honest. Most weekends in my childhood were spent at her split level, making cinnamon toast, watching Price is Right, listening to her stories about her own parents who never trusted banks. It was always just assumed she'd live forever, the stubborn constant holding the clan together. She was 88 now, frail and sometimes confused, still sharp when she wanted to be, but tired. At first, caring for her actually felt like a chance to give back. I shuffled my work calls to line up with her nap time, filled pill organizers, argued with insurance reps, paid the heating bill before anyone else noticed. Some nights, I stayed up late reading on the porch, stealing an hour for myself, just to remember that I existed as more than a family helper. The extended family seemed grateful but distant. My dad, Bernice's only son, lived 2 states away and called weekly to check in, never offering to take over or even visit until things stabilized. Son. My mom split when I was 12. We haven't spoken since college. Most of the time, it was just the two of us, or it was until Sarah arrived. Sarah is my cousin, technically Dad's brother's daughter, though we hadn't really seen each other since she went to school out west. She's always been the go-getter of the family. New job every year, social media full of self-care hashtags, big plans you only half believe. When Bernice got sick, Sarah showed up out of nowhere, insisting she'd help with the medical stuff. At first I was grateful. She brought expensive groceries, printed out care instructions, called everyone hun. But she also swept in like a project manager herself, rearranging kitchen shelves, critiquing my system for organizing grandma's meds, loudly telling anyone who'd listen that Mark is doing great, but he doesn't always think of the big picture. It was under these newly crowded conditions that the weirdness began. The first letter came on a rainy Monday, tucked between electric bills and grocery coupons. Plain envelope, local return address. I opened it thinking it was just some last bill of Bernice's. Nope. Inside, a printed email thread from a local law office, ostensibly addressed to me, thanking me for my correspondence regarding estate disbursement preferences and confirming an update to your intent regarding the property. I stared at the letter for a long time, trying to remember if I'd ever called any estate lawyer. I hadn't. It wasn't even my email on the header, just M. Lewis and a cryptic Gmail account, nothing attached to me. There was a line: as per your direction, the current will draft has been posted for review, with the property split as outlined in your note. My first instinct was to ignore it. These things happen, right? Bulk mail error, some other Lewis out there, or scammers probing for info. I threw it in the junk drawer and left it. But 2 days later, Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table, poring over documents, hers or grandma's, who knows. She looked up and asked, "Did you talk to anyone about Bernice's will? Because it's really important we're transparent, for everyone's sake." "No," I said, "I didn't." She just hummed and returned to her pile, but the conversation hung in the room like smoke. That week, another letter arrived, this time from a different legal firm, addressed directly to me, again referencing our recent call and some agreed structure for the estate. Someone had to be giving out my address. Now, every day, I started checking the mail nervously, wondering what new update would show up. Bernice, when she was lucid, just waved away my concerns. Let the young people argue. Just make sure the cat gets fed. Sarah started staying later and later, joining for dinners, making a point to take inventory of the house. She'd drop pointed little comments. Grandma always said she wanted everyone to be taken care of, but sometimes we have to protect her from people with other ideas. At first, I thought she meant old neighbors or some telemarketer. Eventually, I realized she was looking right at me. I kept telling myself not to make a fuss, not to get paranoid, not overthink things that could have easy explanations. After all, who wants to be the one who starts a family war over a couple of weird letters and a pushy cousin? But I also started making my own folder, taking pictures of anything that looked off, snapping timestamps, copying anything that had my name misspelled or reference conversations I knew I'd never had. Just in case. Now it's after midnight. I can hear Sarah watching a true crime show in the living room, laughing at the victims who never saw it coming. I'm beginning to wonder if my guard is about 10 years too late that you'd think that families would band together during illness, but sometimes it just gives everyone new material for old resentments. The longer I stayed under Bernice's roof, the clearer it became how fragile our peace really was. As spring set in, the house was never empty or truly mine. Med-aides came and went. A cousin from Chicago visited for a weekend and spent most of it asking if I'd found out about the will. Dad called every Sunday with cheerful formality, always careful never to mention Sarah. And Sarah was everywhere. She brought specialty teas for Gran, peered over my shoulder at pill schedules, accidentally tidied my mail pile so I'd have to look for things twice. Her favorite topic, delivered in a tight, bright voice, was, we should all talk openly about expectations, no surprises, total family transparency. Problem was, only my inbox was getting any updates. A third letter arrived, then a fourth, each more specific, each from a different law firm than the last, always with small variations, a slightly tweaked address, new phrasing, per your verbal confirmation. The most recent thanked me by full name, except it used Marcus, not Mark, which nobody ever calls me except on airline tickets. All referenced requests or clarifications I never made. The tension at home grew harder to brush off. Sarah started inserting thinly disguised warnings into every conversation. You know, probate courts look very poorly on anyone taking initiative before a will is finalized. I just hope, when the dust settles, everyone remembers who actually sacrificed for Gran, not just who passed through out of convenience. I kept my head down, shopping, cleaning, tracking meds. But gradually, inconveniences started stacking up. Grocery money misplaced, yet another prescription forgotten at the pharmacy, a utilities bill changed to paperless without my permission. I started noticing items moving around the house, an old jewelry box half opened, Bernice's documents in a new order, my own laptop charger switched out for a different brand. I tried to trust that Sarah was acting in Gran's best interests, even as she asked increasingly pointed questions about bills, account passwords, and access to the attic. Gran told me there's sensitive stuff up there. Do you know the combination? Mark? When I answered I didn't, she just shrugged, but one night I caught her on a chair, poking through the ceiling hatch and ducking down guiltily. The real gut punch came the day I borrowed Sarah's laptop to print a prescription list after the house printer glitched. She handed it over with a smile and went to fix tea. When I clicked open the downloads folder, looking for my printed file, two folders upstairs caught my eye. Mark_tax_2020_photos. Power of attorney_docs. For a second I told myself she'd just like to keep the paperwork straight. But when I opened the first folder, I found half a dozen photos, in uneven lighting, of my driver's license, old tax returns, even a blurry shot of my signature page from at least 6 years ago, probably taken from the file cabinet in my room. My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything. I copied the folder to a flash drive by reflex. The second folder was password protected. That night I didn't sleep, my mind racing with what-ifs. What if she was opening new accounts in my name? What if she was making sure she could prove I wasn't the responsible one? The next morning, I quietly changed my room lock, moved my old papers into a gym bag, and set a web camera on my dresser facing the hallway. I told myself it was just to catch anyone snooping for the cat. Gran seemed to feel the strain. She'd ask in repetitive cycles, did Aunt Linda call? Is the mortgage paid? Did you feed the cat? Her lucidity would fade, leaving her tired and cranky. Sarah played the hero, loudly checking on everything, but always just a step ahead of me in her explanations to Gran about financial safety and household order. Family group chats, previously dead, flared to life with speculation. Mark's been there longest. How's he handling the money? He's always been a little private, you know? Sarah says Bernice is worried about the bills. I tried, probably too hard, to take the high road. I told myself Sarah was just anxious, that she wanted some control in a bad situation. Those late-night letters? Still likely spam or clumsy attempts to start paperwork. But every day, my sense of home chipped away. I started using a pocket notebook to log every odd occurrence. Bills paid, mail moved, conversations overheard, every item that disappeared or changed places. Then came the day Sarah found a medical bill for Gran, overdue by 3 months, with my handwriting and a memo line reading, paid by ML, confirm with attorney. It wasn't my writing, and I'd never seen the bill. The postmark was off, a week newer than the service date. When I challenged Sarah, she shrugged. That's what the bank sent. Maybe you just forgot. That same afternoon, she started a group chat with 3 other cousins, captioned for the family record, with a photo of the overdue bill and the comment. Trying to keep everything open, smiley face. Mark paid this one, but we need more accountability for all Gran's expenses. Let's just make sure we're tracking who does what. Suddenly, I was starring in a family drama I hadn't auditioned for, and every move felt like evidence for someone else's case. My friend Jay, who went to law school before bailing for tech, responded to my late-night vent text by saying just one thing. Start scanning, logging, and keeping all originals. Photograph your old signature cards and docs. Don't confront unless you have to. Just build a clean timeline. That night, I started my own encrypted OneDrive, uploaded pictures, set up a spreadsheet, and tested my webcam setup just in case. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia was starting to look a lot like self-preservation. Update 1. It's strange how quickly just in case becomes I knew it. A week after that group chat with the cousins, the walls of our uneasy truce finally cracked, and what came spilling out made me question just how deep this rabbit hole went. How far family would go to secure their peace or erase a threat. It started quietly, like these things always do. Gran had a rough week, low appetite, confusion about her meds, dozing for long stretches. Sarah stepped in with new fervor, rearranging pill trays, updating the official family Google Doc, texting daily status updates to half the extended clan. I tried, God knows I tried, not to let it get to me, but I noticed more missing mail, a bottle of prescription painkillers gone. Utilities switched yet again to paperless, the Wi-Fi password changed. Just tightening up security, Mark, Sarah chirped, refusing eye contact. The next Monday, after Gran had finally drifted off, I sat at the kitchen table facing a stack of mail when one letter stopped me cold. A thick packet, stamped, confidential, legal, and addressed to me with my name spelled out. Full formal, Marcus J. Lewis. Inside, a typewritten letter from a local probate attorney thanking me for my updated, signed acknowledgement of the recent estate draft and confirming, as per our phone meeting, that my signature had been appended to documentation confirming my intention to decline property rights in exchange for a smaller cash share. There, on the attached form, was my name, signature scrawled. Only it wasn't my signature at all. I stared at it for long minutes, my breathing gone shallow with that special kind of dread you feel when something personal is violated. 2 witnesses, Sarah L. Kennedy and Bernice L. Lewis, and a notary's stamp, barely legible, with a date from 2 weeks ago, one I spent, I am certain, in the house all day, never setting foot in a lawyer's office. At first, my mind split. Was this some scam? A grotesque prank? But the notary was real, and the file contained a cell phone scan of my supposed signature page, shot at a weird slant, as if from a laptop webcam. I pulled out my phone, flipping to the photos I'd quietly copied from Sarah's computer. One showed my signature on an old apartment lease, picked up at just the right angle. My stomach lurched. I called Jay, my law school friend, and went through each detail. Mark, you need to treat this as fraud. Do not confront anyone directly. Make digital backups. Keep all originals. Scan absolutely everything. If possible, secure any objects or files Sarah might have borrowed already. And for God's sake, get an independent notary's opinion if you can. I spent that night running everything through a scanner. The mailed letter, my old IDs, every financial document I could find. Uploaded it to my encrypted drive, backed up to a spare hard disk, then emailed Jay a folder, requesting that he keep it time-stamped and unedited in his own cloud. Gran was having a lucid moment that evening. I showed her the letter gently, trying not to frighten her. Did someone come by for you to sign papers lately? She looked down, brow furrowed. A nice young woman with a clipboard. You said it was all fine, honey. You told me that, right? My heart twisted. Gran, I didn't arrange anything, I swear. She seemed exhausted, lost, and dropped it, later forgetting the whole thing happened. 2 days later, I came home to find Sarah gone, room stripped of her bags, just a sticky note on the fridge. Too much tension here. I'm going to stay with Aunt Linda until you're less suspicious. The family deserves peace. But if Sarah was avoiding me, she wasn't avoiding the cousins. The chat was more active than ever, Sarah sending scanned copies of supporting documents to everyone. She warned, Mark is making things very uncomfortable. I think he's trying to take everything for himself. For transparency, here's his signed waiver, so everyone knows where we stand, smiley face. That night, my uncle called, voice icy. I can't believe you'd back out of Gran's house just like that. Sarah says you're pressuring Bernice. That's not what family does. I felt sick, but also grounded. I had proof. As emails flew, I quietly logged every accusation, screenshot each group message, downloaded every scan, and saved backups of all metadata, file origins, timestamps, device info. I compared the notarized signature to my old apartment lease, the slant, the M, and the curl at the end. Even to my untrained eye, it was a copy-paste, but I wasn't taking any chances. I uploaded everything to 2 more external services, then printed it all and locked it in a file box in my closet, with a dated photo of its contents as extra cover. Jay sent me a referral to a local attorney who specialized in probate and elder fraud. Don't tip your hand, he said. If you're right, someone's in for legal trouble. If you're wrong, at least you'll sleep at night. The house was colder now. Even Gran was more withdrawn. I started keeping my door locked and my keys hidden, like I was living with a stranger. I realized, bitterly, that it had all started not with money, but with trust, the slow erosion of assuming the best. I thought about all the times Sarah called me paranoid, how easy it would have been to gaslight myself into silence. But now there could be no more pretending. Family was about to become evidence, and the only way out was through. Update 2. It's surreal, preparing for a family meeting like a defendant getting ready for court. For a week, I kept the folder with my evidence close, reviewing it every night like I was studying for an exam I never wanted to take. Even the air in the house felt loaded. Bernice quieter, phone calls from concerned family coming in thick, nobody talking to me directly except to ask when I'd be moving out, now that things were being handled. The cousins group chat twisted with new rumors. I'd thrown out Gran's things, hidden money, made her cry. Sarah stayed silent, her avatar still in the thread, but no direct messages, no apology, just more PDFs and photos uploaded of her records. My uncle texted that the family wanted me present for a sit-down with Bernice's chosen notary and the family lawyer, to close this chapter and avoid any further drama. That was their phrase, further drama. Like this was just sitcom turbulence, not real legal stakes or emotional trauma. The meeting was set for noon on a Saturday. I barely slept. My new attorney, Janet, with the calmest voice I've ever heard, reviewed my evidence by phone and told me exactly what to do and say. No confrontations, no outbursts, just present copies. Ask neutral questions, and say you want everything to be verified as a formality for everyone's peace of mind. She advised me to bring both print and digital copies, keep the originals secured, and record the meeting if possible. That morning, I dressed in my interview suit for the first time in years, hands shaking as I checked that my phone's voice recorder app worked. Janet met me at the small law office, her presence grounding, as various relatives trickled in. Sarah with Aunt Linda in tow, 2 other cousins exchanging glances, my uncle with a fixed-lipped smile. Sarah looked like a different person, hair done, paperwork perfectly sorted, oozing confidence. She didn't look at me. The lawyer, A tired man who knew my grandmother for 20 years started with small talk, but everyone was tight with tension. Bernice was there, frail but present, seated at the table's head with a nurse beside her, looking between all of us like a child about to be scolded over a broken vase. The notary opened with formalities. Aunt Linda announced, "We're here to clear things up," on Sarah's suggestion, so Marcus can have closure and the family can finally move forward. Sarah jumped straight in, opening her folder and presenting the waiver, my supposed signature, though witnessed by notary and Bernice. All the scans and emails, now blown up on a laptop. She sounded oddly rehearsed. We all agreed it's best to show everything for maximum transparency. Mark's been acting out of sorts. Grand's wishes should be honored without pressure. I have scans, confirmation emails, and bank copies of paid bills. Janet nodded. If we're going by transparency, it's only fair Mark provide his own records too. We'd appreciate independent authentication of all documents before any changes to the estate are finalized. There was a long, awkward silence. I laid out my folder. I quietly explained that I'd received legal mail referencing calls and documents I'd never provided, that signatures had appeared on forms I never signed, and that some supposed originals were clearly altered digital copies. The notary asked if I was certain. "I'd like you to compare the signature on these waivers to my known signatures and confirm whether they're genuine. Also, please check the metadata of the scanned files. Many seem to originate from Sarah's laptop. See attached screenshots of file properties and device info, which I've documented and dated." I felt more exposed than I ever have in my life, but also angry, not just for myself, but for my grandmother, who didn't deserve this circus. Janet pointed out that the notary stamp used in the file was not a live impression but a digital overlay, and the actual session timestamp didn't match any visit to the house. She had already pulled up public notary appearance logs for that date. No legally documented appointment with either Mark or Bernice. We passed around copies, the lawyer squinting at signature comparisons, the other cousins suddenly dead quiet. Sarah blustered for a minute. Maybe Mark forgot. He's been under a lot of stress. But her cheeks flamed bright. She tried to wave it off, mumbling, "This is just an administrative shortcut. Gran remembers. Right, Gran?" My grandmother looked up, confused, voice small. "Sarah told me to sign some things, for safety. Did I do something wrong?" The room filled with silence that felt like fog. Aunt Linda muttered, "That's enough drama for one day." Sarah tried a last stand. "I'm just trying to protect Gran's wishes." But the lawyer, more exhausted than angry, said, "We'll have to stop all paperwork and refer this to outside authorities. Nothing gets executed until these discrepancies are sorted." Janet quietly slipped me a note. "Don't confront, just step back. Let the evidence work." After, nobody met my eyes as we filtered out. Sarah grabbed her bag and left with barely a word, Aunt Linda following close behind. The ride home with Gran was silent except for her breathing, slow and shallow. In the weeks that followed, my uncle tried a few times to mediate. Half apologies, half, "Let's move on." Sarah texted once, a blank, "I only did it for family," that I never answered. The case went for formal review. An independent notary confirmed the signature was a digital clone, and the supposed call logs had originated entirely from Sarah's IP, not even routed through the law office servers. Sarah was disinherited in the revised will. Nobody pressed charges. "It's family," everyone said. "No need to drag it into court." I kept every file and piece of evidence documented. Gran's health never recovered. After the formalities, she barely spoke, spent her last weeks mostly asleep, and passed quietly the following month. The house was mine, per her final will. It felt nothing like victory. It never will. Final update. It's been almost a year since that first letter landed in the mailbox and set all of this in motion. Though sometimes, walking through the now silent rooms of Gran's house, it feels like decades and sometimes like yesterday. I keep thinking I'll wake up from the anxiety dream, that I'll hear her old familiar voice calling from the kitchen, or Sarah's footsteps on the porch with bags of groceries and two bright opinions. Instead, it's only me and the slow, hollow quiet that comes after a storm. Gran passed away just a few weeks after everything was finalized. She grew smaller and softer during those final days, mostly sleeping, sometimes lucid, often just holding my hand and staring into the distance. The will, drawn up in her own hand and finalized in the presence of two outside witnesses and a court-appointed notary, was clear. The house and savings came to me, with specific bequests to various nieces and nephews, but nothing to Sarah. The lawyer handled it gently, explaining that any attempt to challenge would only place Sarah's forged documents under greater scrutiny and that the rest of the family, for all their flaws, did not insist on dragging anything out for Grant's sake. Aunt Linda called once to say, "Let's not make this the story we remember her by." That felt generous, but also dishonest. Most family cutoffs aren't a single dramatic fight or a slammed door. They're quieter, invitations ignored, holiday greetings gone unanswered, an entire line of people you once thought were yours simply vanishing from the group photos and, for a while, your mind. I still get the odd text from my uncle, a meme from a cousin. Nobody has spoken to Sarah. I have no idea where she is. Her social media went dark the same day the notary's letter arrived at her mother's house. Sometimes I wonder if she regrets anything, or if she simply feels like the victim who was caught out, trying to protect family. I stayed in the house for another 6 months, fixing the furnace, tending what was left of the garden, sorting endless boxes of photos and receipts. Each room had its own memories, but none of them felt safe anymore. Every time I stumbled on a misplaced bill, found an envelope with my name spelled wrong, or saw my old driver's license in some forgotten folder, I felt the ghost of all the worst weeks rising up. Work became both a lifeline and an escape. My manager never pried. I learned how much you can function on autopilot. I started seeing a therapist, first for anxiety and insomnia, then for the knot of guilt and shame I couldn't untangle. It's a strange grief. You mourn not only the person you lost, but the family you can never go back to. The imagined version where love and decency would have been enough. It's tempting to end this with a clean moral, justice prevailed, and at least the right person inherited. But in truth, justice is cold comfort. Yes, the law was on my side. Yes, I proved I wasn't a thief, a manipulator, a liar. But the cost was trust, belonging, and the stories we tell ourselves about what family should be. The documents, timelines, and emails, all the receipts, are still in a box in my closet. I can't bring myself to delete the backups. Paranoia, once learned, is hard to unlearn. Sometimes, I still check the mailbox nervously. The garden is overgrown now, but I try to keep a small plot with the flowers Gran liked. Lilies, peonies, those stubborn wild violets she never mowed. I talk to neighbors, help with their computer trouble, try to be useful in small, clear ways. Some evenings, I'll see lights from other houses, laughter, silhouettes in the window, and wonder if their families ever had to prove, in writing, that they loved each other. If you're reading this hoping for catharsis, or for a villain hauled away in handcuffs, you'll be disappointed. The end of my story is quieter, a kind of ache that's less sharp, but never fully goes away. Some nights, I manage to sleep. Some mornings, I wake up and realize the first thought I have isn't about distrust or loss. That feels like progress. If there's any advice I can give after all this, a final update for anyone caught in family messes. Keep receipts, set boundaries, don't rush to be the bigger person at the cost of your own safety. And forgive, if you can, but only when you're ready, not because someone else needs closure. Sometimes, the ending you get is simply the one you can live with. Thanks, Reddit, for letting me write this out. And to anyone who's still reading, you're not alone if winning feels almost as lonely as losing.